There's something about jazz legend Pat Metheny that makes people listen when he speaks. Maybe it's because he's one of the few musicians who doesn't hide behind polite industry smiles. For over 4 decades, Metheny has been a master guitarist, composer, and bandleader. But behind the calm voice and endless melodies lies a man unafraid to speak his truth about others in the music world. In today's video, we're diving deep into Pat Metheny's most shocking opinions about other musicians, the ones that made fans gasp, sparked feuds, and revealed how brutally honest this jazz icon can be. Let's start with the feud that broke the internet, Pat Metheny versus Kenny G. Back in the early 2000s, Metheny made headlines when he called Kenny G's music a musical crime. Why? Because Kenny G had overdubbed his own saxophone playing on a classic Louis Armstrong recording, a move Metheny found deeply disrespectful. He didn't just criticize the act, he tore it apart publicly, saying, "Kenny G has no musical talent. He's the dumbest musician alive." Those were strong words, and they shocked fans who had never seen Metheny so furious. But to him, it wasn't personal. It was about integrity in music. He believed that tampering with the legacy of someone like Louis Armstrong crossed a sacred line. But that wasn't the only time Metheny spoke his mind. When asked about Miles Davis's electric period, particularly albums like Bitches Brew, Metheny admitted that while he respected Miles's genius, he felt the later fusion years were more about attitude than content. It was a polite jab, but one that revealed how he separates substance from showmanship. He's also commented on modern jazz musicians, saying that many of them play it safe, recycling old formulas instead of inventing new ones. According to Metheny, the true spirit of jazz isn't about playing fast or complex, it's about finding your own voice. And that's the irony. While Metheny criticizes others, he's often been criticized himself for being too experimental. From his electronic orchestrion project to his fusion albums that blend Brazilian, rock, and avant-garde sounds, fans either call him a genius or say he's not jazz anymore. But here's where it gets interesting. Metheny once said something that revealed how deeply he views art. "You can only criticize others when you've risked as much as they have." That line alone explains why he's fearless in speaking about music legends. When it comes to honesty, Metheny doesn't spare even his friends. Take Jaco Pastorius, for example, one of the most influential bass players of all time and Metheny's early collaborator. They created magic together in the 1970s, but their relationship later became strained. In interviews, Metheny praised Jaco as a once-in-a-century talent, yet admitted that fame and ego destroyed him. He once said, "Jaco was a genius, but also a tragedy in motion. He couldn't separate art from chaos." Those words were powerful, both loving and brutally real. It showed that Metheny saw music not as a fame contest, but as a spiritual journey that few could handle. He also had interesting thoughts about John Scofield, another guitar icon often compared to him. While fans tried to pit them against each other, Metheny clarified, "John's great at what he does, but we come from completely different planets." It wasn't shade, but it was his way of saying that he doesn't compete, he creates. But where Metheny's opinions really shocked people was in his criticism of the music industry itself. He once called the Grammy Awards a marketing tool, not a measure of artistry. And remember, this is coming from a man who has won more than 20 Grammys himself. In his words, "You can win a Grammy for being popular. That doesn't mean you changed music." He's equally skeptical about modern fame. In one interview, he said that social media has made musicians more focused on being seen than being heard. Back then, we practiced 8 hours a day. Now they post for 8 hours a day. That line alone caused an uproar, but deep down, most musicians knew he wasn't wrong. Through every controversial comment, one thing becomes clear. Metheny isn't trying to insult anyone, he's trying to protect the spirit of music, the authenticity that made jazz what it used to be. Whether he's calling out Kenny G, analyzing Miles Davis, or reflecting on Jaco's downfall, Metheny's goal is always truth, not clout. And maybe that's what separates him from the rest. He speaks his mind because he's earned the right to do so. At the end of the day, Pat Metheny's story reminds us of something most artists forget, that honesty still matters in a world built on hype. He didn't become a legend by staying quiet or playing safe. He became one by standing firm in what he believed music should be: pure, fearless, and deeply human. Every quote, every interview, and every so-called controversial statement wasn't just an opinion, it was a warning that real art is dying when truth becomes uncomfortable. Metheny has spent his life protecting that truth, even if it made him the villain in someone else's story. And maybe that's the lesson for all of us. Sometimes being misunderstood is the price of being authentic. Whether he was calling out Kenny G for rewriting Louis Armstrong's legacy, questioning the Grammys, or challenging young musicians to dig deeper, Metheny was never chasing headlines. He was chasing truth. So, as the lights fade and the guitars fall silent, ask yourself, do you still listen to music the way Metheny believes we should? Do you still search for that one sound that stirs your soul, or have you let noise take over melody? If this video made you think differently about art, legends, or even the meaning of truth in music, then don't just click away. Join our community. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and stay with us as we uncover the real stories behind the world's most iconic musicians, the feuds, the secrets, and the brilliance they tried to hide. And before you go, make sure to check out our deep dive on Annika Nilles, the drummer whose secret technique impressed Rush instantly. It's a story that proves how talent, when mixed with courage, can rewrite destiny. Because here on this channel, we don't chase fame, we chase truth through sound. And I'll see you in the next one. In the world of jazz, few musicians carry as much influence or controversy as Pat Metheny. With a career spanning more than 4 decades, Metheny has redefined what it means to be a guitarist, blending genres and breaking musical rules that others wouldn't dare touch. But behind his calm presence and quiet genius lies a truth many fans don't know. Pat Metheny has some of the most unfiltered opinions in modern music. He's known for speaking his mind, no matter who's listening. From jazz legends to pop icons, Metheny's words have sparked admiration, outrage, and endless debate. But perhaps the most explosive example came during his public feud with Kenny G, one of the biggest names in smooth jazz. The controversy started when Kenny G overdubbed his own saxophone solo onto Louis Armstrong's iconic 1968 recording of What a Wonderful World. What some called a touching tribute, Metheny saw as a violation. In a now famous interview, he called it a musical crime and went even further, labeling Kenny G the dumbest musician alive. The reaction was instant. Music fans split into 2 camps: those who praised Metheny for defending jazz's heritage, and those who accused him of being elitist. Yet Metheny stood firm. His outrage, he explained, wasn't about ego, it was about respect. To him, tampering with